Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I'm delighted this Friday afternoon to be joined by Brian Degnan and Jim Orr. We are here, of course, for the next 1 hour to talk all things Celtic. Jim still helping us out with the brand placement, the product placement.
Product placement.
Thank you very much. Lots to talk about. Rewatched the game this morning. We're going to be talking all about that. We'll also be talking about what we got up to last night. So we were at Barra's Art and Design last night for our fan zone. Big shout out to Danny Kelly, who provided the tunes. Fantastic night. And a big shout out to the Hamills. And that includes Mrs. Catherine Hamill and also Gabriel Hamill. Yes, you'll be hearing more from Gabriel later on the show at some point. All will be revealed. Thanks, everybody, for that. And also thank you to Quinny and the boys for holding the fort with the match day streams. And it's the match day we're going to be talking about. Brian, what was your take on last night's 2-2 draw over in Italy?
I thought it was very good. Actually, I thought it was a very good performance. It reminded me a lot of the Atalanta game in terms of how we defended. And I think the commonality there is Big Trusty being an absolute giant last night. I thought he was excellent. But I thought it's really interesting, actually. So if you look at the team since Martin O'Neill came back initially and then came back again, they're kind of consistently inconsistent, because against Auckland like Talbot we were awful, and I know there was a lot of changes and stuff, but you can still see that the players are more confident and it's a bit more organised. But you saw the best version of that last night, I thought.
Yeah,
I thought we pressed well, but we pressed like smartly. We chose when to press, when to sit in a bit, and then of course obviously the ridiculous sending off really changed it. I thought wee Martin was going to belt the referee. he was less than impressed, and good to see. A bit of fire, and I think rightly so, because some of the decisions were very strange. I think he made a really good point after it about the decision around Maeda when he was fouled. But I think because he stayed on his feet and played the pass to Yang and he got a shot away, it was sort of let go. But there's every chance that could have been a red. So then for to go and for Hatate to get sent off, I thought I did fear the worst. And then we scored, made it 2-0, and it was like, hold on a second, am I watching the right movie? Because this is unusual. And then of course it ended up with a draw. But I think if he'd have said before the game, would you take a draw, Bologna away, given this squad, given the season we've had, I think you'd have bit your hand off for it. And it gives us somehow a chance to still qualify when we play Utrecht. So it's a roller coaster is a cliche, right? But my God, what a season of up and downs. And to think that, I know we'll talk about Hearts as well, but potentially we could progress in Europe, maybe get back in league contention after the farce that's been this season is quite remarkable.
It is. JP and I were speaking about this yesterday in relation to a draw being a good result, and I think we both agreed that it would be. Not a betting man. I fancied us for a draw. Didn't expect the performance to go the way it did. I was really impressed, both watching it live and then again this morning. And one of the things I was looking at this morning, I'm going to start off with Big Trusty because Brian's mentioned him, Jim. This is a player that was struggling for game time under Brendan Rodgers. He was struggling for game time when we went to Tynecastle last time round, and Brendan decided to play Dane Murray and Colby Donovan on the right-hand side of the fence. And I think that was the weak spot, and it was a weak spot that Hearts focused on, and they beat us at Tynecastle. And obviously, Brendan didn't stay too long after it, but I think he's proved a lot of doubters wrong, Jim, has Big Trusty. I was watching him with interest last night. Him and Scales love defending. That sounds weird, but let's be honest, during the domestic games when we're on a bit of form, very much we're not defending, but we're expecting our centre-halves to be the starting point of an attack. I just think they thrive on games like last night, Jim.
Yeah. I mean, before answering the question, I need to go back to cliche-ometer. So Brian's in with two early ones, including the one that makes no sense at all, that I would bite your hand off. For that, I would physically bite your hand off. I mean, so I don't lose anything, but you've lost a hand. That whole cliche just makes no sense at all to me.
Not Trusty. One of your favourites. Where's the other one? Have I thrown a wee cliche into the mix there, Jim?
No, just Brian with these two cliches.
Right.
One one passed mustard, one didn't, which is another cliche in itself. So Trusty was brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I think my kind of default for these games in Europe is don't get doing. And if you lose a goal, don't lose other goals in quick succession. And when we scored first, you think, that's good. That's unusual. And then Yang was dead unlucky just after that. And you thought, this is really good. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying a game in Europe against a good team. And then Hatate, I mean, the first yellow card was ridiculous. He's on the halfway line, at the touch line, petulant, silly. And the second one was even worse, petulant, silly. So I got a wee feeling that maybe Hatate might have burned his, what's the cliche? Burned his bridges, burned his boats.
Bridges.
Burned his bridges with Martin, I think, because he let everyone down last night, Hatate, with that petulance. And he may not get a second chance. I think for Hatate's point of view, it wasn't a very clever thing to do, because he's one of the guys who we're talking maybe he's at the end of the cycle, maybe he's looking to leave, and you put yourself in the short window in the cliche in those European games. If he went there and played last night, scored a goal, and you thought, and he's actually playing pretty well, I thought, and that's the game you put yourself in the short window. So he might have shot himself in the foot, another cliche. Sorry. Yeah, and that just changed the whole game. And the impact for Sunday could be felt as well, the fact that it played with 10 men for such a long period of the game. But from Trusty's for me, he's a kind of old-fashioned defender. You win your individual battles. He's got good anticipation. He sniffs things out. He's got good pace. He puts his body on the line, puts different parts of his body on the line, as we saw last night. He works well with skills. I agree with Brian. It had that kind of Atalanta feel about it last night, and he just thrives on that. And he's a good defender. And I'm kind of a bit like Martin O'Neill, kind of old-fashioned. You want my defenders to defend and just be defenders. Don't try and break the lines and don't do all the kind of modern jargon. Just defend and give the ball to the guys who can play football and take it from there. But yeah, him and the skills are outstanding. Kieran Tierney was outstanding. I think the big concern we've all had is that maybe Kieran might struggle with injuries. But in fact, if anything, I think he's getting stronger with each game he's played. But in terms of result, after the Falkirk and Auchinleck games where we were just awful, just dreadful, they pulled a big performance out the bag last night, and that'll give them a lot of confidence going into Sunday.
Without a doubt, right? And this is probably the reason I think that I'm watching the Falkirk and the Auchinleck Talbot games just like you guys, totally unimpressed with the performance, but not getting too emotional about it, because I'm thinking it's just a couple of bad games. We're better than this, right? And I think last night proved that we can be. Now, still on the point of Trusty, a couple of other wee things that I noticed today. Well, I didn't notice the first one because I already knew it, but it was on display last night. What a turn of pace he's got. He's incredible, right? And, you know, that allows him to go up for the set pieces, which we've not been good enough at. We get so many corners, particularly domestically, that we should absolutely figure out a way. And I don't know if you bring in a set piece specialist or whatever it is, Brian, figure out a way to make them work for us. And having spoken to Martin O'Neill, obviously, and other people involved in putting on gigs, etc., I was given the information that he was talking to a number of different players and really tapping into them, you know, man-to-man management, Brian, old school management. One of the guys was Arnie Engels, and it was about the physical aspect of his game and the fact that he's got all the natural ability in the world to be a physical player. I mean, he's got the build, he's got the height, he's got all that, and he just had to add a bit of bite and a bit of aggression into his game, get up and start winning headers. And I mentioned this because he had a go at him after the game. The following game was against Hibs. He gets a header and injures himself. So he does exactly what Martin O'Neill tells him to do. And the other one, of course, is Trusty. Trusty, for the size of him, doesn't win enough corners, doesn't win enough headers in the opposition box. And then you see him last night, and one of the chances that was created was an Engels corner. He wins the header. Maeda gets a wee touch on it. And it was one of the moments where everybody stands still. And actually, the goal is gaping. It's just waiting for somebody to put their toe on it. And that all came from Trusty winning the header. And then, of course, he scores the goal. Brilliant technique. Get the studs on it, Brian. Keep it down. Get the studs on it. It'll go anywhere. But I've also seen him and Engels absolutely not taking any of the kind of aggression from other defenders, and they're pushing him out the way. Now, in terms of Hatate, I need to bring up Reo Hatate. And I've got here, I'm going to bring up Gordon Coney. Jim's already raised Hatate. I put out a tweet last night. Loads of people, in fact, the majority of people disagreed with it, and that's fine. So it actually made me wonder about his performance. So see, when I was watching it last night, Brian, I'm thinking Hatate's having a good game. He scored the goal. He gets sent off. And if it wasn't for the sending off, I'm thinking he's had a good game. Put that out last night because I actually feel that Hatate created the goal that he scored, and he created it by closing down the goalie. He's brilliant at that. He can only do it for a half because he runs himself into the ground. He's brilliant at it. Him and Maeda, the two of them, right on the last line of defence constantly. And then because of the feedback online, I'm thinking maybe I'll watch that game through rose-tinted spectacles. I'll watch it again this morning. And seriously, I did watch it again this morning. Up until he gets booked, Hatate doesn't put a foot wrong. There's one moment where Kasper Schmeichel plays a ball to him, and I think it's harsh to say that Reo loses it. The ball should never get played to him. There's three Bologna players around about him, and he does get dispossessed, but I think it was a bad pass, and Schmeichel does that thing, Brian, that we all do. Throw the arms up because it's somebody else's fault, and it made Reo look bad. That was about 17 minutes in. But see, up until he loses a wee bit of his composure and he gets booked, I thought he was having a very good game. So I'm going to stand by it. I listed every single time he had the ball, and I'm thinking to myself, he's actually created that chance that you mentioned where Maeda gets brought down. Reo wins the ball, passes it to Maeda. He gets brought down. Yang takes a shot. So I thought he had a decent game. But seeing that 2 minutes, Brian, that 2 minutes could lose us the game. And I think for all intents and purposes, it's lost us a couple of points. And it is all about composure now. I'm watching the second one with interest. The first one, Ferguson's right in the ref's face, going on about him getting booked, and he gets booked. Probably deserved to get booked. The second one, was it innocuous? Do you think? Yeah, there's an element of petulance there. But see, when somebody's got their hands on you, like at a corner kick, for example, Brian, and you see players doing that and kind of chopping the hand down to get them off, I'm looking at it like that. Again, am I looking through rose-tinted spectacles? Did he deserve the second yellow?
So I don't think he did. No, I think it was a silly foul to give away, but I think it should have been one of those fouls where the ref says, "Right, you've been booked. Next one, that's you."
Reel your neck in.
Aye, because it was. I don't think there was the intent to hurt. It was just and if you look at, and you maybe probably know better than me if you watched that again, but there seemed to be loads of fouls like that in the game. It was quite a physical game. I think it was a really nasty, but it was played at a good strong pace, and I just don't see how that one's a booking. I think it was really poor, and I think given the fact he already been booked, should have had that extra bit of consideration. But on the flip side of that, it was stupid and it was petulant, and he should have known better. And I think you saw Martin O'Neill saying, like, he was pointing his head as if, like, think of what you're doing, and then obviously then it's all kind of kicked off a bit. But I also agree with you on Hatate. I thought Hatate was good as well. I think that I mentioned right at the start we've been kind of consistently inconsistent, and I think that also sums up Hatate. I've said before he's a bit like Samaras in that when he's good, he's great, but when he's bad, he's just not on it at all. And I think while Samaras had games where the big man's off it today, Hatate flits in and out during a game.
Mm-hmm.
Which I kind of think is why he gets picked so often still, because he is capable of a bit of magic and a bit of creativity that I don't think a lot of other players are. But yeah, I did think he played well. Trusty's such an interesting character because last night he really stood up to the physical side. He looked his size, if that makes sense. He was putting himself about, strong, fast, as we said. But there's times domestically, he kind of, in skills is similar actually. He kind of gets in a bit of a faff, and he looks weaker physically than he is at times. And I can't really understand why. It's quite a strange dynamic, and I don't know if it's because he's got so much time in the ball and so much time to think, whereas actually when he's getting, he's having to just defend. that's when he stands up well. It's like instinctive strikers. It's like if Maeda's got time in the ball, he's not going to finish it. Whereas sometimes the ball just comes to him, he can rattle it in. It's the opposite it's the same for Trusty, but as a defender. And then the last one you mentioned there, Engels. I think everyone knows I'm a big fan of Engels. I think he looks in a really, really good player. I think sometimes he looks a good player in the wrong team, but it feels like under Martin O'Neill, he's kind of getting it, or Martin's kind of getting a sense, because under Rodgers, he never really. It always seemed unclear what his actual position was. like on a position apart centre mid, but in terms of what his role was, whereas it looks a bit clearer under Martin, I think it's suiting him. And I really hope, and it's not maybe the transfer fee, because I think he could be a real asset, and I think at times, particularly in Europe, he is. So he's one I hope that, and there's rumours that he's really keen to stay now that Martin O'Neill's back. I think there's interest for Leipzig on him. Apart it's just paper talks, it might be nonsense, but I can sort of get it. I sort of understand why he might want to, and he does suit the type of player Martin O'Neill likes to have. Big, strong, and athletic
You take
player.
him out of the midfield, Brian, and we've got a very, in terms of physicality, you take him out of the midfield. We don't have another midfielder like him.
No, even Bernard, Bernardo's a funny one because he's a guy that I really liked at first because I thought he had that real physical presence and he's put himself about, but he seems to have really, I don't know,
he's regressed
like dramatically to the point where I don't see what he's offering at all. And again, maybe he's just a good player in the wrong movie.
Again, you look at them on paper, you think Bernardo and Engel should be the great hope for the future in terms of the midfield, but Bernardo's not progressing the way I thought he would. I was a big fan of him in his loan period, actually, but since he's signed permanently, he's never really had that run. What was your take on Hatate, Jim? Because it divided opinion, the fact that I had the audacity to give him some praise for pressing the goalie and then putting the ball in the net. But I watched his performance with even more interest with that in mind, because I'm happy to be proved wrong. And if he was spraying balls out the park into the opposition, I would have said, right enough, I was wrong. Reo had a nightmare, but he didn't. He actually didn't have a nightmare. The worst part of it is that we could have had a famous victory in Italy, I think, last night, had he not been sent off. Everything was working, and I know we get the second goal when we're down to 10, but everything was working. We had no issue whatsoever until we go down to the 10 men, Jim.
Yeah, first thing I'll say that under Ange's team, Hatate was my favourite player. I think he's a fantastic player, and I thought he was going to be bigger and better things. I think when Ange left, like Kyogo a wee bit, he went backwards a wee bit, maybe the system that we played. However, so I'm a huge fan of Hatate. I love to watch Hatate. I've said before that they talk about he's like in the midfield player who takes risks. And as I said back in the day, we called them midfield players because all midfield players took risks back in the day. Everyone played forward. We didn't play back the way. So I'm a huge Hatate fan, but I disagree with Brian. He deserved to go last night. And that's what made it all the more weird for me, that he was petulant. And both fouls were on the halfway line. There was no need to make the fouls. Different if he's bringing a guy down who's throwing goals and you say, okay, you're taking one for the team. Neither of those were taking one for the team. And the second one, to put another cliche in, he gave the referee a decision to make and he shouldn't have done that. And that was his fault. And he caused last night, I mean, as you said, we could quite easily have lost the game. We managed to get a point, which is good. My concern is the impact onto Sunday, that all those players that played last night will be absolutely knackered for Sunday. So he's caused a lot of problems. That's why I think maybe he might have burnt his bridges. I agree with you, Paul. I thought he was playing well up to then. He scored his goal. Yeah, apart from the Schmeichel pass, and he's done that a few times. Schmeichel made really bad passes and then threw his hands up as if this isn't my fault. So yeah, I thought he was playing well. But what's the word? Inexcusable, I think, is the word I would use for the two tackles that got him the booking. There was no need to do that. And Martin O'Neill must have been going absolutely ballistic. Having made such a great start, he certainly let the team down, I think, last night.
Well, I have looked at it just with a fine-tooth comb, and obviously you had that one when Schmeichel plays it to him. There was another two, because someone's come in here to say that he was losing the ball all night, right? He was caught with the ball. There was another two where he was dispossessed. One of them, he wins the free kick, and the second one, he didn't, but it did look as though he might have been pushed over. However, he loses the ball. So just before the two bookings, he loses the ball. And he loses the ball when Schmeichel gives him it. So that's 4 moments in a 30-minute period. And I just think that's the 4 moments you remember, Brian. Therefore, you say 4 bad moments, bad game. But when you look back on it, again, the biggest issue for me is how it's affected the team. And how's it going to affect the starting 11 come Sunday, Brian? So I know he's going to be available for inclusion. Does Martin O'Neill include him, though? How do you think O'Neill plays that?
I mean, I certainly think he'd like have rinsed them. I remember.
Was he pointing up at the stand as if to say, "You're no good to me sitting up there"? He pointed up at the stand at one moment, O'Neill, didn't he? When Hatate was coming off.
I remember. I think it was Thompson got sent off in one of the games, and Martin went absolutely mental at him.
Yeah, called him a coward.
That's right.
I called him a coward. Yeah.
So I know, you know, he wouldn't have been happy. I think he'll include him because we kind of have to, because the squad's so bare. So unless somebody magically comes in today that's going to be a starter, I think I don't know if he starts. He might start Negrin, but I think he'll be in the certainly squad or the bench. Because I say, I know Jim said he disagreed with me, but I think we said similar things, and that it was petulant and it was a stupid thing to do. And I think it's kind of, he doesn't ever. What was odd was it seemed a wee bit out of character, because he doesn't seem like that type of player. It was a wee bit strange, like, and I know he's quite an unusual character, to be fair, but it's not the type of thing I would have imagined him doing. So I think that's why I was surprised about it. And on your point about the effect on Sunday, I mean, in one hand, yes, it's more exhausting because you've less players, but we were camped in for a lot, so you're not running maybe as much. So I know that's another thing, but if you're running, you're chasing the game, you're pressing, you're trying to attack, it's a different energy from defending and being compact. I don't know, energy exertion is energy exertion, but I wonder how much of an effect it will have, because you would think that although Hearts will be a strong opponent, you would assume we're still going to be quite possession heavy. So maybe a different type of energy. We don't know. And it's one of those things where, you know, you can sit and be a fat guy with a pint moaning that players can't play 2 times in a week. But the reality is, you know, they're only human. And there is an impact there. And I just think that Martin can't afford to make too many changes, because we don't have enough quality to change. So yeah, they might be tired, but ultimately they're going to have to get through it, and it's going to have to be managed.
I found it interesting. Peter Grant was talking about it when I rewatched the game today, and he was saying that in terms of playing, it's even better than training. You know, so you'll get your rest days, certainly today, and maybe a light training session on Saturday, but you'll be ready. He says, you know, the best thing ever is to get that match sharpness as games. So you'll have everything at your disposal to get you prepared for that particular match. I'm going to bring in a couple of the points before we move on to the next subject here now. What do you think in the comment section? Was it petulance or was it an innocuous second yellow? Let us know in the comment section how you felt Reo Hatate played. That's divided opinion. And we've got the Pork Chop Express coming in to say, going to be a long wait for this board to back any manager, because the tagline is this: back Martin O'Neill and he will salvage Celtic's tumultuous season. And that's exactly what it's been. There's a lot of descriptive words that could be used: dysfunctional, chaotic. Quite a few have been used, but I honestly believe that you watch last night, and you watch last night with no winter signings, because obviously Araujo isn't in the squad, and our new striker will be coming into the squad, hopefully for the playoff if we get there, weren't available for inclusion last night. Yet Martin O'Neill seems to be able to, with the same group of players that Brendan Rodgers had at his disposal, Jim, and that Wilfried Nancy has at his disposal, he seems to be able to wring out extra ounces or pounds from these players. Trusty speaks after the game last night. He talks about it. It's not just about the players, it's about the coaches as well, the quality of the coaches. Chuneki before the game talks about getting played out of position. He's never a wing back. Martin O'Neill, Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham should not work. When you look at them, you know, when that was announced that Monday night there, Brendan Rodgers resigned or was resigned. You've got a 73-year-old manager who's not managed in 6 years. You've got Sean Maloney, for all intents and purposes, a failed manager. And Fozzie, who's basically a meme for the way that he says intensity. However, the three of them come together and it works. I mean, we could go on and on and on about why change it when we did. We shouldn't have changed it. But back them, Jim. This is my point. He's managing to get performances like last night out of the same group of players. Allow him to bring in 3 or 4 and let's actually push, because you know what? There's now 2 trophies to play for domestically, and we're going to try and go as deep as we can in this tournament as well. Yeah,
I think before answering that, going back to the tiredness thing, there's a mental tiredness as well. I mean, as a fan watching these games, you're mentally exhausted. I've lost count of the number of Champions League games you go to the Celtic Park and you're just concentrating for the whole game, and you as a fan are absolutely knackered when you walk out the stadium. So there's that mental tiredness. There's all the travelling that goes with it as well. So Reo add up to making Sunday a bit more difficult than it should be. In terms of Martin O'Neill, it's kind of back to basics for me. Just do sensible stuff and try and do it well and try and do it consistently. I think Rodgers had his own agenda. I think he was playing some games in there, and Wilfred Nancy, goodness knows what he was trying to do. I think Martin O'Neill just went back to basics and said, "Look, defenders defend. Wingers get the ball into the box as soon as you can. Get the ball at the pitch quicker." So he's back to basics and keep things dead simple. And I think that's what footballers like. Footballers don't want things to be too complicated. Don't like a lot of change. Nobody likes change. The best of times, but footballers certainly don't like change. And asking people, as Nancy did, to play out a position. I know you say, either football player, you should be able to do that. It is a lot more difficult than we think. And the fact you've got 60,000 eyes watching you, you've got millions watching TV. It's okay for you or I in a kind of normal job. You can maybe change something you do and nobody's watching you. You can make mistakes with the public eye, but doing it on a football park, you're pretty much exposed. And I just think he's doing kind of sensible things, and he's just repeating what he's always done in his management career. Come in, do simple things, keep things simple for the players, give them tons of encouragement, build them up, build their confidence. And a confident player's got a much better chance of doing well than somebody who doesn't have a lot of confidence. And even from the earlier stage of the Nancy regime, they looked as if they were lacking a bit of confidence. So that's going to end up, it's only going to end up one way, tears, basically. And I think that's what Martin O'Neill's done. He's built their confidence up and he's kept things dead simple. And I think, not so sure our squad, but certainly if you put our best 11 players on the park, I think we're the best team in the league. Our best 11 players will beat Hearts. Best 11 players will beat Rangers better. Best 11 players. When you have to go to the bench, I think that's when we start to struggle. When you talked about Bernardo earlier, he's not had a lot of game time, Bernardo, and I think it's difficult if you don't have a lot of game time to try and get some sort of a rhythm going. And he has underwhelmed, but I think that's to do with the fact that he hasn't had much game time. But the question with Martin O'Neill, I think he's sometimes, it's actually difficult to do the simple things, but he does it really well. I think that's where we are, and that's why we're all a bit more optimistic than we were this time 3-4 weeks ago. Far more optimistic than where we are. And we need to back him. They do need to back him. And the fact we haven't done anything, I know this is going to be this period of the conversation, is a total embarrassment. Total embarrassment of Dermot Desmond, basically. He's the guy that pulls the strings of the puppet. And I saw the Michael Nicholson thing. Why is he there? I mean, the optics of that. The optics of that. I mean, these are meant to be intelligent people. How is that intelligent? Even if he's sitting at home doing nothing, watching the game, that's better than turning up, wandering around the streets of Bologna. Just the optics of that are appalling, and I don't understand that. And I'm not the most intelligent person in the world, but somebody who's a qualified lawyer think, you know what, you should be intelligent. Why would you do that? Why would you?
It's a lack of common sense, isn't it? Like, if you
look at intelligence.
If you look at what you're saying about Martin O'Neill there, he's took the common sense approach, right? Yeah. Back to basics, confidence, organisation. Michael Nicholson and the rest of the board lack any sort of common sense or degree of self-awareness. And to your point, Jim, to get in the positions they've got in life and the success they've had relative, it's madness that you would think that's a good idea. And what it also shows us, there's nobody anywhere around them with a backbone to say, listen, Michael, this probably isn't a good idea, mate. Like, there's no one there to just say. I mean, how many times in your careers, in your jobs, and people in the comments can say it as well, if your boss went to do something and you've said, listen, I think we're making the wrong move here. Because sometimes you got to have a bit about you. And if you're at Celtic and you're in that privileged position to help run the club, have the bottle and have the nuance to sort of go, the nous rather, to sort of go, wait a minute, it's a stupid idea, Michael. Can't do this. You can't. And it goes back to the AGM when I said at the time, if Nicholson had a backbone, then the boy king Desmond would never have had the gall to say that ridiculous statement, because as I said, listen, Ross, you're not going out with that. You can't be saying that today. So it's common sense for Martin O'Neill and a lack of common sense for everybody else involved, it seems.
Brian, it's also the fact that, is the fact that you're trying to imagine the conversations these people are having with each other. So Michael says, I'm going to go to Bologna. You're going to do what? Are you off your head? No, I'm
exactly.
Going. Are you off your head? No, I'm going. Are you off your head? No, I'm going. You're off your head, Michael. I'm away. Bye. You're thinking,
Yeah,
"You're off
it's
your head."
madness.
It's
I think
madness.
what Brian says is right, though. They're living in a room where no one is saying that, Jim. No one's telling them otherwise. And this is the issue, because then you're in an echo chamber, and then they think we're the problem. I mean, how dare we even question the fact? I mean, this is their job. He's the CEO. This is how they do it.
Also, business button in again, sorry, is the fact that take it away from their work colleagues. They've got one assumes friends and family who might say, "Are you sure, Michael? Aye, I'm going to Bologna. Are you really sure? Are you really, really sure that's a good idea? Aye, I'm going."
I'm going to extend this, though, Jim. I'm going to extend this because, right, here we go. Normally, ordinarily, yes, someone within your circle would say that to you, right? You're making a real mess of this, mate. But no, because remember back in September when we were in that meeting, that ill-fated meeting up at Celtic Park, right? And remember the statement that was released, and it went down like a lead balloon. It's actually been put into the shadows by Dermot Desmond's statement. Remember their initial statement that was released, and nobody put their name to it. Remember that one?
The AI one?
Yeah, it's been the one that people reckon was AI generated. It was a shocker of a statement, an absolute horror show of a statement, right? And when he individually was questioned about it, he said it didn't land with a few fans. And he said, I've spoken to fans. And you're thinking you've spoken to people in your living room, mate. I've spoken to fans who thought it was all right. So I'm sorry, Jim, these people live in an echo chamber in the club and in their own living rooms. They just live in an echo chamber, unfortunately, Jim.
Are you mad? I mean, and that just sums up Celtic this year. And obviously, you can end up repeating what you've said a million times before about how that person is in that job. And we know how that is, because for me, it's almost like Ronnie Dyler thing that Dermot Desmond says, you know what, there's nothing to lose. You do the job, it will be fine. And then now, cliche chickens have come home to roost, that, you know, we've got a challenge, not just one challenge, we've got two challenges, and we don't know what we're doing. But let's go to Bologna anyway. Let's go in the streets. And you never know, we might actually meet a Celtic fan there who might have his phone out. You never know. No, that won't happen. Of course it won't happen. Just, the whole thing is just, it sums up, certainly this season, and certainly what we've seen over the past decade or so, about the complete and utter mismanagement of the club.
But that comes back to my favourite word, Jim. It comes back to a
culture.
Culture. The same culture on a bigger scale that thought Dubai was a good idea. You know, it's just like, read the room. Now, we spoke over the last few days leading up to this game where I said, and plenty of people disagreed with me, they shouldn't be on the plane. Why? Because they've got a day-to-day role. Now, not everybody on the Celtic board does. Not everybody's in Celtic Park every single day. Chris Mackay and Michael Nicholson do have an executive role where they're there, and it's in a transfer window. It's in a transfer window, and not only that, guys, right? It's in a transfer window where we've had a transition, not only of the management team, but of the entire recruitment department, because the head of that department has gone, and from what we hear, talking to various different people, with him has gone any plan, if there was one. So in terms of, here's your 5 midfielders, your 5 right wingers, your 5 forwards, your 5 centre defenders, take your pick. That's all away. They're starting from scratch as of the 5th of January. It's all hands on deck. And what I've been hearing is that certainly Fotheringham, Maloney and O'Neill have been working to that effect. I mean, they're working right round the clock. So the guys that do the deal, you know, the money guy and the contracts guy, they should be at Celtic Park. Now, I'll tell you what, in terms of how it looks, it doesn't look great. I then seen the video that Jungle Lion brought up, and it did ruffle feathers, because straight off the bat, people said, oh, that's shocking. Imagine filming them, putting it out. Imagine giving up. I'll tell you what, see if Celtic think that that's threatening or abusive. Seriously, grow a set. That's a Celtic fan having a bit of crack after the game, Brian, is all that is. I mean, he didn't say anything horrific. He never threatened the guy. And he's the Celtic CEO. So if he thinks he can walk around the streets of Bologna after a European game in the state that we're in, and someone won't go up and speak to him and potentially film him, then he's in the wrong movie, Brian, I'm afraid.
Well, again, it goes back to that. It's like, imagine the worst that happened and we got battered last night, right? So you've got Celtic fans that have spent a lot of their hard-earned money to travel over, support the team, go to that game. We get gubbed. the squad's a shambles. They come out the game, and the very man in charge is swanning around Bologna. You know, looking at the sights, not care in the world. If you're him, you've got to think, I probably shouldn't go out and I maybe shouldn't be seen here. This might turn nasty. But it's a total lack of self-awareness. It's that total sort of it beggars belief, actually. It's very hard to rationalise in my head.
It's entitlement, right? We get called entitled all the time. They think they're entitled to be there because this is their job, and they see I'm entitled to be here. Yeah, but you shouldn't be. You shouldn't.
It's also getting back to that lack of self-awareness and lack of intelligence. I mean, for all we know, given technology the way it is, Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay could have been working non-stop and then took a break to go and watch the game and came back. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that the fact that they couldn't understand being there would annoy the fans. So why take the chance? Why do it?
Totally agree with you. I totally agree. And by the way, feel free to disagree, because I think what I've seen as Jungle Lion messaged there and commented on the social, Brian, is not everybody agrees with this. People are saying, no, he should be there. He absolutely should. He's the CEO. He's representing the club.
And I get that, and that's fine, but you go,
send Roy Aitken. Send Tom Boyd, send ambassadors.
Aye, that's what I was just going to say. Like, you've got ambassadors, you've got people in there that could go. You know what I mean? There's plenty of people around that could go there and represent the club. And you know when you probably don't need someone to represent the club? When the team's playing on the park and you're sitting watching it, you probably don't need someone else in the crowd so they could go, oh, look, there's Michael Nicholson, jackpot. I thought I was just watching the Celtic play, but look, there he is. Yay! Is that the reaction he's going to get? No, it's outrageous. And to pick up your point, Paul, in terms of the entitlement thing, I almost think it's almost self-delusion to the point where they genuinely don't see the problem.
No, they don't.
Because I think that even if you're entitled, you would know to a degree that, hold on a second, like, because if you're entitled, you kind of have to be good, right? If you've got that arrogance, you kind of have to be good.
It's you got to back it up, totally.
You got to back it up, right? You got to be able to say, well, I am a so-and-so, but look at the work I do.
Zlatan, like Zlatan.
Zlatan, right? I like these guys. You've got to have it. What you can't do is swan about as if you're the man and be crap. Do you know what I mean? Imagine you're a boxer and you're in for a press conference and you're like, I'm the best in the world. This is class, this is no problem. And you get sparked out in the first round, 30 seconds, and never fight again. You can't have the confidence to walk out and tell him you're the best boxer. So CEO Mike Nicholson hasn't earned the right to be arrogant and entitled. That's why I think it's almost they've spent so long in that echo chamber with Peter Lawwell patting him in the head and telling him what to do and throwing him a biscuit that actually they
what kind of biscuit? What kind of biscuit? What kind of biscuit with Peter Lawwell chucked to Michael Nicholson and discussed?
It'll be another version of chocolate digestives because he won't buy the real ones. The Kit Kats, wasn't it?
I think some meaning. That's got meaning in it. Yeah, that's what. I was just going to say that. Oh no, sorry, Brian.
No, I was just going to say, and I think it's almost it's self-delusion to the point of parody, where I actually think now they genuinely believe what they're saying. Like I think Michael Nicholson probably genuinely believes he's doing a good job and doesn't quite see the problem, and that's almost worse than someone digging their heels in, because if you're digging your heels in, you kind of know you're wrong, but you're just doing it to be spiteful. So there's a part you might want to prove people wrong. But if you think you're doing everything right and nobody's telling you any different other than your customer base, you're going to struggle to move on.
That is the case, Brian, because when they were challenged rather about the European performance at that same meeting that I mentioned earlier, they came back and said, oh, but look at how many times we've been in the group stages of a European tournament, and you were sitting thinking it's almost a given that Celtic will be in a group stage of some tournament the way that it's built, and you think that is actually you guys being successful. Sorry, Jim, you were going to come in there.
I was laughing there because it was something to do with he has to be at Bologna to represent the club. As if all the Bologna directors saying, where's Mick Nick? Where's Mick Nick? No, where is Mick Nick? He's not here. We've heard so much about this guy and he's not here. We need to see Mick Nick. Where's he? What I'm going to say, as I said before, I would use the word coefficient. Is that 2 words? Coefficient. See, when you throw this trophies thing at, yeah, you're good at beating Livingston and St Johnstone and Dundee United, but see, when it comes to coefficient, you're miles away. Why is that? Because you can't beat Mulder, and you can't beat Malmo, and you can't beat Cara or Mate. And we've got a situation just now in the here and now whereby our friends across the city have got the best coefficient in the Champions route, and they've got every chance of getting the Champions League because they've performed in Europe and we haven't. It's total embarrassment. So when he plays that, shows the trophies thing, and that's beating Livingston and St Johnstone, Dundee United. But what about Europe? Miles away. And that's all because what's happened in the last 10, 15 years, managed decline.
No, and at the same time, you can also, if they want to bring in the business side of that and how that affects your finances, you can also bring that in. Monty also asked the question, why on earth was Nicholson in Bologna yesterday? A lot of people might be thinking we're making too much of this, and I do want to get back to the football, but I think it does need to be mentioned. Now, see, when we go into the game, I can't believe this hasn't been brought up. What a kit that is, Brian. Third kit, the coleslaw kit. It looked terrible until I seen it last night in a famous European night, and I honestly, if we didn't have a boycott, I'm buying a full kit, shorts, socks.
It's one of the worst ever, isn't it?
Beautiful.
It's right up. Remember the grey and pink one we had? I think we wore it one game.
Never even wore it. That's how bad that was.
Aye, it's just horrific. And actually, this I know we're piling on the board a bit, right? But I heard that actually Adidas come to Celtic because of why they're like top clubs in terms of sales, and they give us designs, and someone at the club picks from the said designs. Apparently, it's no Adidas themselves that say this is what you have to have. So it's actually, and I might be wrong there. Somebody correct me, but it could be the case that that kit's also their fault. Which is
everything comes back to the box.
I think you have to mark your card, Brian. You're jousting with the Celtic jersey whisperer here. So if he says it's a classic kit, you have to bow to that knowledge, because he will tell you the stitching.
I'm going to cling on to something. I keep banging on about 40 years since Love Street, and if you look at them and skew your eyesight a little bit, these shorts look almost lime green, right? So I am going to grab onto that.
You're at it, Dykes.
I'm grabbing onto that,
The
lads,
whisperer
right?
strikes again. There you go.
Right, Tom Dahl. Martin O'Neill has been phenomenal, but the Nygren sub didn't work. You had to change it and put Maida on the left because Nygren was getting beaten far too easily. I've got to agree with this. Now, I'm going to start off with talking about the starting 11. Obviously, our first choice right back is not eligible to play in the Europa League yet. That will change if we get into a playoff. So there's a choice to be made here, Jim. I'm going to ask you, did he make the right choice? Because again, I've already said many, many times, Tony Ralston, great professional, brings a lot to the table. I don't think he's been the same player since Nancy came in. I think he's still suffering some kind of PTSD. As I keep saying, the worst performances he's had in a Celtic jersey was under Nancy. Colby Donovan gets the shout. Jim, I watched him again closely this morning. I thought he was excellent. Now, he's raw. There's a lot to learn in his game. But I'll tell you something, I think he's going to be a Celtic player for seasons to come. I'm sorry, Brian, to say this. I'm not so sure about Dane Murray from what I've seen. But Colby Donovan, for me, last night, coming in, European game, away from home, I think he done really, really well, Jim.
I think he's done really well, but for Tynecastle, I'll go with Olsen because it'll be a battle on Sunday. And I think playing Dane Murray there last time was a big mistake. I don't want to make the same mistake again. I think Donovan's great. I'm not saying he's a weak link or anything like that. I think he's done really, really well. But I think for games against Hearts, Tynecastle, and going to Ibrox, stuff like that, I think you want your most experienced players. And I think, again, getting back to my kind of do the simple thing, play your best players in the best positions, play the most experienced players. So for Sunday, I would bring in Tony again. And also, Colby Donovan playing, I know he came off last night, but he put a lot of the game with 10 men as well. So he'd have been quite tired. He's a young guy as well. So, but for Sunday, Tony Dawson comes back for me.
So what about a new right back, Jim? Julien?
No, Tynecastle. No,
You're going for Wilson. Interesting. Yep. Brian, do you agree with that?
At Celtic Park may be different, but at Tynecastle, no, Wilson.
I was literally just about to say that very same thing. At Celtic Park, it would probably be different, but I think Ralston's a funny one because I absolutely get Jim's point in terms of it's going to be a proper fight, and he tends to perform fairly well in that. My only concern, which goes to Paul's point, is he doesn't even look the Ralston we know. Like, he looks like a lesser version of the player who's been playing, and he's no brilliant. So that's a concern. I think if it was the choice, then yeah, I think you probably go with Ralston over Donovan or the new guy. But I don't think it'd be I suppose what I'm saying is that if Ralston starts, I'm not going to be devastated. I think Donovan has been very good, and I do agree. I think Donovan and Murray, I think Donovan's the one who will go on and play. I don't think they drop off. I think the drop off's lower between AJ and Donovan than it is between AJ and Ralston. I think Donovan's much closer. But again, it just depends what condition they're in. So if I was picking it, I might stick with Donovan, but I can totally understand why you would pick Ralston, to be fair, because it does give you that extra physicality. And again, it depends what condition Donovan's in. The only actually now I'm questioning myself. Actually, the only flip on that is Donovan's young and he's finding a bit of form. Do you want to pull him out of the team, or do you want to just keep him and try and build up his confidence? Because if you pull him out, you're kind of saying, look, we need somebody a bit more up for the fight than you. And is that right approach? I don't know.
I think it's due to experience. We know what Tynecastle's like. We know the first 20 minutes is going to be absolutely hectic. He's a young guy, so the other defenders are going to have to talk him through the game, whereas Tony Ralston will just jump in there and play. Hopefully play his normal game, but play the way that he can play. And I think he's a bit like the arguments for Trusty. Just defend. Just put in the tackles, win the balls, stick in the middle of the park and just do your job.
My big concern, as well as the fact that Murray and Donovan started at Tynecastle, is I think that one of their danger men will be starting off the left wing. Yeah. And Kazaridis has done really, really well since he came to Hearts. And I think you wait up, and I'm a Ralston fan. I don't hide that. I just don't think he's been his usual self since Nancy came in. Donovan, what will it do to his confidence? I think he'll take it on the chin. He might need the rest, as Brian's saying there. I'm going for Julian Araujo to start the game at the weekend. So let us know in your comment section. It's all about opinions, and it's all right to disagree with us. Absolutely.
Also, Paul, that when Ralston came on last night, did really well. Number of good interceptions. And he didn't look out of place last night against that team. So anyway.
No, he did. There was a moment, Jim, in the box actually where he's nicked the ball. It wasn't quite a back heel, but he did really, really well to get it. I think the other decision that we could talk about is the one that sparked off this particular topic, and that was the half-time move. Now, in the first half, the most anonymous player, Brian, was Taneke for me. And defensively, I don't know if he'll ever have that to his game. And obviously, it's one thing playing well and scoring against Auchinleck Talbot, but Scottish football then serves up Bologna away. And, he looked a wee bit out of his depth for me. So to take him off, particularly when down to 10 men, absolutely. But I thought he might have gone safe and defended for his life in the second half, and maybe even brought on your man Murray as an extra defender. But he brings on Nygren. Do you think it worked?
Well, it worked objectively because we got a reasonable result. We got a draw at it. Ultimately, if we'd have conceded another couple, it might not have worked. So hindsight's great, right? You can pick it. At the time, I wasn't sure because I kind of understood the mentality behind it, because if you've got an extra attacker on it, not an extra attacker, but I put an attacker on there and keep an attacker on there, at least it gives them something to think about, so you're not totally camped in. Although we did get totally camped in anyway. So I can sort of understand the mentality. I suppose I would have questioned Nygren because he's not really got pace. And you probably wanted someone who could, if you're going to have that approach where you want someone on to give the opposition something to think about, you need a runner for that. But look, ultimately, the decision is a good one because we got a result. And if we didn't, it'd been a bad one. That's kind of how you can look at it. You can analyse it at the time and move what didn't, but ultimately, I think that's the answer. In terms of Taneke, I think he's just a lesser Palmer. I really do. I think he's clearly a decent footballer. I don't think he's anywhere near what we need to drive us forward. And I think the reason I say he's a lesser Palmer is because Palmer could be frustrating and make the wrong decision, but he contributed far more. Goals per game is considerably higher than Teneki's. And I just think Teneki's level is sort of SPFL. He'd be good at Hearts. He'd be one of Hearts' better players, for example. Or really good at Hibs. I just don't think he's good enough for Celtic. He reminds me a wee bit of remember Gary Mackay-Steven?
Yep.
Technically a really, really good player, but just not quite good enough decision making, not good enough physically, not good enough, not got that sort of defensive mind. So yeah, I don't especially rate Taneki at all, as I think I've made clear. One person who I also didn't rate, but I have to give kudos
I
to
know
is
what's
Yang,
coming. I know what's
Yang.
coming. Yep.
Because
he's no longer a discussion point. That is what he's done.
See the transformation Scales had about a year and a half ago, where people stopped asking for a replacement for Scales and started kind of accepting that actually he's done well and he's kind of found his. I think you say that about Yang, because I've sort of said, Yang, geez, here we go. But actually, he's like this season's Bobby Pettit under Martin O'Neill, isn't he? Because he wasn't really going anywhere. Martin O'Neill's come in, and suddenly the wee man's he's looking the part. To be fair, he's working really hard, and you could be cynical and say he's in the shop window. Cliche time for you, Jim. He's in the shop window.
You got to hit the buzzer, Brian.
So I missed the buzzer. See you.
Right.
I mean, I think you've done about 14 to my 3, to be fair. So you're still winning, but
Bobby
I
Yang,
think,
excellent.
Yeah,
okay.
Yang. But yeah, I think that actually you could say maybe he's performing for to get a move, and if so, fine, because he's going to get the good results for us. But I think you have to call him out, and I'm happy to say that I've kind of changed my mind on him recently. I think he's actually coming to a game.
Big shout out to you and Martin, who started the Yang Gang. He was a founder member, and he was the only member for a long time. But I've got to say,
Yang wasn't even a member.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. But
on the waiting list.
To you, is there one? I was not a fan. I really was not a fan, and I think that watching his performances under O'Neill, can we say first time round this season under O'Neill during that 37-day period that Martin O'Neill was an interim manager, I thought Yang came into his own, and he was the other guy along with Engels that. Trusty, that he was one of the players that he really focused on trying to get the most out, because he had to. Because we've got James A. Forrest as the other right winger who can come on for cameos, but that's about it. Yes, we still should be looking for a right winger, 100%. But I tell you something, when even last night in Bologna playing a decent side away from home in Europe, I'm looking at Yang and he's not my biggest concern in the team. Tuneki's now my biggest concern in the team. And I think that with that in mind, and you're looking at our new signing, we've not even spoke about him today, Jim. It's Vanchara. I don't know if you just want to call him Big Tam. But he's a player, obviously, that if he comes into the side, and I don't know what your thoughts are in relation to this, if he comes into the side, it makes that decision a lot easier for me, because Maeda goes out to his favoured left wing position.
I don't know. The question was about the Negrin substitution, which I thought was a bit odd, because the person we haven't mentioned is Maeda, who was unbelievable last night. Unbelievable, so he was. And I thought maybe moving Maeda out to the left and maybe bringing on Kenny would have been what I'd have done, but what do I know?
No, because Kenny does press as well, Jim. I think he has got a lot of what Negrin doesn't have in terms of speed.
So that was the only bit of last night I thought that was a bit odd. But anyway, notwithstanding that, 2 weeks was brilliant. If we're going to put the big guy up front, again, getting back to how I think Martin O'Neill would look at things, keep it simple, wingers, hit the byline, cross the ball.
Yeah.
And that's not one of Maeda's strengths. And although Taneki started off pretty good, and he's kind of a bit of a kind of lull at the moment, apart from the goal he scored last week, I think if we're going to put this big guy up front, we want decent crosses in. And I think Taneki is actually somebody who can put a decent cross in. So I'm not so sure that Maeda might go to the wing to let the big guy. I think he'll play Maeda in the wing to start off with, and Sunday night he might play Johnny Kenny to start off with, and then maybe bring on Tam at some point. But I think if you're going to put a big guy up front, you want good quality crosses in from both wings, and that's not Maeda's strength. So that was interesting. Want to see how that one pans out.
The best down that left side for crossing the ball in is Kieran Tierney by a distance.
Yeah.
By a distance. I mean, what's he got this season? 7 assists from left back. Brilliant. Absolutely great.
So we can play maybe 3-4. Oh, hold on. We've done that.
Don't
That's
go
been
there.
tried. I think I've tried that one.
That's all we need.
I have an idea. I get an idea. Steve Wilson.
The day, guys, let's see if I can bring this up. I shared this in the fabled Acsom WhatsApp group, and it was an interesting item of merchandise, guys. I don't know if you remember know what's coming up here, and I'll see if I can bring it up. And I don't know how many of these are going to sell, but it was a Wilfred Nancy Celtic T-shirt, and it makes you wonder, what are these people on? Quite frankly,
who's trying to sell that?
There is a T-shirt manufacturer who is selling a Wilfred Nancy T-shirt. Surely no one, even Wilfred himself, won't buy that. Absolutely horrendous choice.
Does he have kids?
It might be good for Halloween to give people a scare if they see him again, but
he does have kids, yes.
I think if we win the league, we should all be wearing that. If we win the league, because that how many points did he get?
Seriously,
six.
Livingston and Aberdeen.
I think if we win the league by less than 6 points, I think you need to have the Nancy T-shirts on.
At that point, I'll share the link. I'll share that link, right? AG times AG. Bernardo, no game time. Jim made the point. Then when he does start, it's a poor game from the whole team. Yeah, fair enough. I just think that he showed enough in his loan spell that I wanted us to buy him. I thought £3.5 million was a decent deal for somebody who had been captain in the Portuguese under-21 squad. Since he's come permanently, I'm not seeing it, and it's under a number of managers. And I always think about that. If you don't perform under a number of managers, it's on the player rather than on a system. McLaughlin P would be 7 points minimum in front of Hearts if it wasn't for the Nancy debacle. But we do have a T-shirt for you, McLaughlin. Get in touch.
Order it now.
We'll make sure we get one sent out to you. Culture, Hatate, man of the match on Sunday, and a Johnny Kenny goal. See the positivity that Martin O'Neill brings to the comments section. It's phenomenal. It's in the stars. We will win 3-1. Again, listen, it's one of the games I would love to see a good performance and a resounding victory. Any victory will do for me at this stage. Let's get us back in. We're in the title race, but seriously, I think in terms of momentum, mentality, all of that kind of stuff, what it will do for us, it would work wonders. But also, what will it do to Hearts, who have already got a few injuries racking up as well? Sarah Simpson, they're buying players. Got this on a good authority with at least one of the players that the manager doesn't want. So that Hearts, there's a lot of things happening in the background there as well, Brian. You know, whereby you're using a Jamestown analytics system that is identifying a player and the manager saying, I don't want him because he's a BAM. However, we're going to buy him anyway because being a BAM doesn't show up in Jamestown analytics. The player's been bought, he's coming to Hearts, and the manager doesn't want him. Sorry, Jim. XB.
There's not a BAM factor in the Jamestown.
There isn't, apparently.
I think that's a flaw, surely. That's a flaw.
Hatate was way too weak on the ball, as has been the case for much of the season. I love him, but he's not at this level, sadly. What I would do as a secondary point on that one, Sarah, is say that I think that some of these guys get a fright when they're playing in Europe, Jim. I mean, it's a simple thing, but I'll tell you what, they can hold a player off. You watch Hatate's use of his body domestically, and often he's just brushing players off, I feel. He can't do that at this level last night.
Like the comment, I love Hatate as well, and as I said, under Ange, I thought he was the main guy for me. And it's a shame he's went backwards, but there's a really, really good player in there, and he has been inconsistent. Maybe different systems haven't helped him or whatever, but I'd love to see him thrive. I just think maybe Martin O'Neill might, for what happened last night, he might not play him on Sunday. He might bring in Nigrin, who's done well this season in terms of goals and assists and what have you. So we had a goal or two on Sunday. And if you look at the last two Hearts games, he had the chance at one each at Tynecastle. He scores that, then there's no Hearts challenge at all. That would disappear. And the game at Celtic Park, Maeda had the two chances. So we've played Hearts before. We've had chances to score early. And it happens in any football match. If you go ahead, your confidence rises, their confidence goes down. First goal's always... If we'd have scored the first goal in both the Hearts games, we win both Hearts games. We're having a different conversation just now. But I don't know how Martin will feel about Hatate from last night. That'll be interesting for Sunday.
It will be. It definitely will be. Nigrin, good point on Nigrin. He's brilliant at getting a goal. 12 goals, top goal scorer this season for Celtic. Maybe that was on Martin O'Neill's mind last night. Get another goal, put this one to bed, even with the 10 men. John Francis comes in to say, interesting that Martin O'Neill introduced Bernardo instead of McCowan. I think Martin O'Neill has made his mind up on Luke McCowan. Bernardo is suffering from football depression.
Fair point, yeah. Fair point.
Strange love the doctor. The Italians 2-0 down at half-time, milked every ounce of sympathy they could out of the ref. They weren't in the game until they canned Reo out of the game. And I think they tried to do the same with Maida, who was on a booking. And Maida is known to be a bit rash at times with the tackling. I thought he was outstanding. He was my man of the match last night. Dyson Maida, absolutely phenomenal. And even if he wants to get away, there is a way still tapping into him. And I think Martin's found it. And it might be motivating him by saying, look, you'll get your move, but you need to perform because your form's been stinking for most of this season. We've also got Provo Al McKevitt would let Bernardo leave in the summer. And Alistair Brown says it's not a set piece coach we need, it's a dark arts coach. Hatate was targeted after his first card and he took the bait. He did. There was a naivety about that. You can't let that happen at this level. It's time we started doing the same with opposition players are on a card. Are we nasty enough? I was asking this question last night, watching the game alongside Tony Haggerty, Brian, your old buddy. And I said to him, let's just make it 10v10 then. Who's the nasty guy in our team to do that? We don't have one, do we?
Mm-hmm. No, and it's something we've lacked for quite a while, actually. I think, I said this last night, actually. I think we really need a spine of big, sort of horrible, naughty players. No the type of players that are going to be trying to injure other people, but just get in their faces, knowing when to do this. And we have lacked that a bit, and I think it's a great point there for the commenter, because actually you could see, and you've saw a lot of times, not just with Italians, but in Europe, that there is that extra level of surrounding the ref, getting in people's heads, annoying people.
Mind Juve in the 2012-13 season in the last 16 on the corner kicks. Remember Gary Hooper, and they had their arms right round them, and they didn't know what. You remember that?
So, and that might be just a thing that the club. It's no easy to foster that sort of thing, but I think it is something certainly we lack.
Get a bit of savvy. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to Jim and Brian today about Celtic. Nice wee spring in a step, bit of positivity. Brilliant result last night, regardless. And I know how it felt after having a 2-goal lead. Will that be reflected in relation to the lineup on Sunday when it comes to Hatate, for example? We shall see. Tomorrow, 12:30, this is Acsom on the channel. 365 days a year, award-winning content. Thanks everybody for supporting us as always. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We are hurtling towards 40,000 subscribers for your daily content. Yeah, we do merchandise. No Nancy t-shirts, unfortunately, but you can buy an Acsom mug. Join us again tomorrow at 12:30 on A Celtic State of Mind.